All right. Hey, 30 days to amazers, you amazing people, you amazers. What's going on? Hey, I did the most important thing today when I started this video. I think I hit the unmute button. So let me know if you can't hear me. That was actually really helpful. That saved me an hour of just rambling along today. It will not be an hour today. This is kind of a simple concept that we'll talk about today. But hey, as we get going, let me know in our Facebook group or in the comment section of YouTube if you're watching on there. Let me know what obstacles you're having so far. So it's day 9, and so I'm assuming everything is going well because everyone's kind of being quiet about, hey, I assume everything's going great. And if that's the case, that's awesome. But if you have obstacles or challenges or questions about, hey, this concept, you need to bring these up because that's kind of what this group is here for. And I'm not sure if I'll be able to answer them to your satisfaction, but I'm going to give it a stab. And maybe the other resources in our group can help with that as well. So do not be shy. And again, if you have a question, you're probably asking it for not only yourself, but probably for the other 19 people as well too. So avail yourself of me and of this community because that is what it's here for. So what challenges are you having? Or, hey, let's celebrate what's going well. That's what we want to hear that as well too. So I'm assuming that if everything's going well and you guys are being quiet about it, that's good news, but tell us about it. We want to celebrate with you and we want to hear and we want to cheer you on, and that can also be an inspiration to all of us. So, Michael posted his screenshot of his food journaling, and so that's something that's going well. I mean, I think he did it not just for the points, but for, hey, just to hey, look how this is going, and this is not so hard, and making these little simple changes to your health and wellness can really benefit not only you but all of us as well. So keep that up. Okay. Hey, before we get on today's email, I was thinking about, I was in Walmart, and I tried to avoid Walmart at all costs, but I was there last week, pick up something that I couldn't get anywhere else. I probably could have, but anyway, long story short, I was in a Walmart to my chagrin. And I noticed that on sale, I don't know if it's on sale, but when I walked in, there was a display of Valentine's Day treats in the form of these white, soft cookies. Do you know what I'm talking about? Not like the hard, crumbly cookies, but it's kind of like the things that they sell at Walmart. It's just like a cellophane or a clear wrapper of these white, soft kind of cookies, and they have like a big, thick frosting on them. They're like about that thick. I think you know what I'm talking about. They changed the frosting for the colors of the season. So next month, they'll probably have green frosting, one of those for St. Patty's Day. But right now, it's a lot of whites and reds and pinks for Valentine's Day. And, at Halloween, it's orange. At Christmas, it's green and red. And so, but the price is what kind of startled me, is that a box of those cookies, I think there's like 12 or 16 of them in there. They were $5.50 roughly. And it was like $5.50. And I'm like, that's a lot of money for what you get. I mean, I could afford it. And I really do like those things. They actually taste really good. But I don't feel very good after eating them. But I was thinking, you know what? I hear this all the time. It's like, yeah, I probably would eat healthier, but it is really expensive. And I think I use that excuse for years too. I used to just think that, okay, if I want to eat healthy, I'd probably have to just shop at Whole Foods. Whole paycheck is what it's called sometimes, or I'd have to spend more of my money at Trader Joe's and all that kind of stuff. But I was like looking at that $5.50 wrapper, and I was like, that's exactly what I spend on a 10-ounce grass-fed steak on sale at my local supermarket. And I'm like, duh, it's not more expensive to eat healthier, or is it? That's the question I want to propose to you today. Because when you look at this, maybe you're like, hey, from day one, you're like, okay, these are the things that I want to eliminate. So out goes all the boxes and crackers and cookies and cakes and all the packaged food items. And in comes the Optimized Life approved foods list. And you look over this and you're like, oh my gosh, grass-fed steak on there, or grass-fed ground beef, or cassava flour chips, or whatever it might be. Those are kind of expensive. And so maybe I'll kind of go back to my ramen noodles and the cheap food, or my dollar menu items at McDonald's, or whatever it might be. And I just want us to think about this for a second. I'm actually such a geek that a couple of years ago, I decided, I wonder if it actually is more expensive to eat in a more supportive, healthy way. And so I tracked my food expenses for a whole year when I was eating gas station food and fast food and just kind of whatever I felt like it. And then I contrasted that with foods that I've been eating on the approved foods list for a year. And so I kind of compared and contrasted that in my Quicken. And here's what I found out. Are you guys ready? So do a little drum roll at home. What I found out was that eating healthy, more supportive, nutrient-dense food it is more expensive. So I thought it would kind of even out, and I could, come on and say, oh, you know what, it's not more expensive to eat out or to eat healthy than it is to eat unhealthy, or like if it was even better, if it was even more of a cost, savings on the grocery budget, I would have been like, hey, this is great findings, but found out it is more expensive. So I don't know if that bums you out or not. But before you run off to your ramen noodle lunch, let me just say that here's how much it was. I figured for me, it was $2.67 more per day. $2.67 more a day to eat in a manner that was more sustainable, that was more healthy, that was more self-honoring, that was more supportive. And I think, you know what? Is it worth it? No, it might not be for you. You might say, you know what? That's like 70 extra bucks a month or something like that, and that's too much, and my budget's stretched as it is. So maybe that is out of the question, because it's a sacrifice. I don't have just 70 extra bucks laying around in coin jars or in my couch cushions. But again, to think about it, like, is it worth it? And like, it is. Let's just get away from like physical health for a second. I'll come back to that. But like for just my enjoyment of life and how good food makes me feel, yeah, it's worth $2.67 more a day. Because my food makes me feel great every single day. And I can never say that about food that I ate, like the Walmart cookies, when I used to eat those on the regular. I mean, every holiday I'm going to get my color-coordinated holiday treats from Walmart. I mean, but I enjoyed them, and they gave me like that mouth-pleasant sensation, but I never walked away from one of those binges and said, you know what, man, that really makes me feel good. Like, I felt so good eating that. I just felt pretty cruddy afterwards, but I didn't really know the difference. But now, like, food makes me feel so incredible. And I didn't know food had the power to do that. So that was an eye-opener. So that part of it alone, the satisfaction and the way that it makes me feel, is worth the $2.67. It is. And I would rather spend $70 extra a month on feeling good all the time through food than I would on a pair of shoes. I mean, I can think about so many ways that I wasted $70 a month, maybe on designer coffees or, a quick... Here's the thing. I used to go to Chipotle and put down $7 for a burrito or $8 for a burrito and think nothing of it. That was just like the cost of a lunch every now and then. Do that a couple times a month. And it's just like, man... But I would always like not buy a steak because it was too expensive. So I had to kind of reframe that a little bit. And I'm only doing this looking back on it now. But if you're kind of in that midst of like, hey, you know what, eating is just too expensive to eat healthy and stuff like that, I want to challenge you on that, because first of all, you're worth it. Second of all, your body's worth it. We haven't really talked about that, but let's talk about that for a second. Is it worth it to be sick less often? In my case, and I've said this before, I got sick every 3 months, like clockwork. It just happened all the time, like clockwork. Every 3 months, I could set my watch to it. And it's not that I never get sick anymore. I was sick in December of 2019, and that was the last time I was sick. And so I kind of keep an eye open for that. So that's worth it. But how many lost productivity would I lose? I mean, this is the added cost of eating cheap, crappy, processed, made in a lab, made in a factory, made by man kind of food, is like that. If it's going to make me sick, how much more am I losing out on income? There's that cost. Obviously, medical bills and medical expenses are way, way down in my life. And so yeah, it might cost you $2.67 more a day. It might be less than that, but it's when you factor everything in, and I factor everything in. There's probably other areas I'm not even really thinking about. It's probably a wash, or it might even be going on the other side where it's like, hey, you know what? I tend to be eating probably less calories because of the nutrient-dense food that I'm consuming. And maybe I am eating, maybe my grocery budget is less than it has been. I mean, we don't even eat out anymore. Okay, and you're thinking, I have a friend who told me this years ago. Is like, yeah, I just don't really enjoy restaurants. I don't really like going out. And I looked at like, dude, like he was absolutely crazy. Like, what are you talking about? You don't like going to restaurants and eating out? And I don't anymore. I really don't. I'm making a blanket statement because yeah, you find an awesome restaurant that just makes things that you can't make at home, and it's awesome experience. But we don't trust. In our family, my wife and I, we don't really trust most of the going out. We usually don't have the greatest experience. We have blah food, and a lot of times I'm like, I could make a better version of that at home, or I could make a more trustworthy version of that at home. There are exceptions to that. Like when I was in Key West this year, darn tootin', I had some key lime pie. There's no paleo key lime pie that's going to match the pie from the key lime pie company, for instance. But those are the kind of the rare exceptions where kind of going out to eat while you're on vacation or something like that. Those are about the only times that I really kind of like going out to eat. And so, man, we've saved so much money off of just restaurants, for instance. And again, it goes back to kind of feeling good after restaurants. Like we used to go to this Italian food restaurant. I'd get this like big, thick lasagna, and it tasted so amazing. And I loved every bite of the experience. But I would leave this Italian food restaurant, and I never ever looked back on it and said, "Man, that made me feel so good." Like I'm like paying the price for it, with bloating or gas or weight gain or needing to take a nap afterwards. But again, I never walked away from one of those restaurants and like, man, that made me feel so good. There are exceptions. There are some restaurants that you can find that are, and if you need some ideas, let me know about that. But there are some restaurants that have 100% supportive ingredients in all of their food and all their cooking, and those are the places I like to go to. But you know what? We only go to those on occasion too, because man, we spend so much money there. Like I'll get like one meal for the wife and I, and we've spent $25. Sometimes is it worth it? Absolutely. But for $25, man, I can make a haul at home. So anyway, just something that I've kind of morphed in and evolved in and personally grown in. And you don't have to be there. I'm not saying that going out to restaurants you should feel guilty about it or bad about it or anything like that, because hate to each his own. But just I'm kind of talking about just how I used to just say blanket statement, just eating healthy is too expensive. That's only for the the whole food people, not for us normal Walmarters. So hopefully that gave you some things to think about. I posted something in my other Facebook group about it's just the Optimized Life Facebook group. If you're a part of that, you need to get in there. But I was just kind of comparing per ounce, like grass-fed meat, as opposed to Snickers and or tofu or vegetarian burgers and things like that. It's a pretty interesting list put up by Diana Rogers, and just kind of makes you think. It's like, you know what? No, if I kind of reprioritize and if I kind of reframe my thinking around that stuff, you can do it. And you can kind of take satisfaction. I talked about my $5.50 10-ounce grass-fed ribeyes that I get, but I got to get them on sale. They're on sale every day, but it's like maybe once a month. But then I'll go and grab 4 of them, and then maybe I'll go back the next day and grab another 4, because you can only max out at 4 of them. But you can just stock up your freezer with those things, and you can always have a ready-made meal at the helm that tastes just freaking amazing, and it's going to make you feel awesome after that. So yeah, I want to challenge you, if you're using it as an excuse, come up with a better excuse. All right. Okay. What else do I want to talk about? One quick thing about food journaling. I mentioned that earlier, that he posted his Facebook thing about his food journal. If you're starting to do a journal and you're like, man, this really is hard, I promise you it gets easier than that, because it's really cumbersome and tedious at first, but these really good, like the MyFitnessPal one, it kind of remembers what you like. I mean, unless you're eating brand new foods every single day of the year, but it starts to kind of memorizes like your patterns. So you start to type in something maybe you had 10 days ago, and it's kind of remembers what it is. So you get real good at this if that becomes a good accountability tool for you. Okay, let's go on to the email. So we're talking about, we've been talking about food for nothing but 9 days straight, and now we're going to talk about something else. We're going to talk about exercise. So I've kind of taken at least 4 days in 30 Days to Amaze to talk about exercise. So this is just part 1 of 4. And so we'll talk about all 4 of the different kinds of exercise. And this one's probably the hardest one, the most difficult one, because it doesn't seem like exercise. It's just simple movements. Okay, so simple movements during the day. And this is definitely the hardest one because it's the easiest one to ignore. Now, if you think about our modern culture, we are lacking in movement in the worst way. We just don't move very often or very much. And you see this in a lot of different ways. But, if you think about just the average day of an American, and maybe you kind of fit into this category, again, don't feel guilty if you are, because that's most of us. But if we kind of go along with this MO and we don't do anything, we're kind of setting ourselves up for failure, because movement for humans is a non-negotiable. Let me say that again. This is a non-negotiable. Okay, this is the exercise, the non-exercise exercise we have to do. We don't get a pass on simple movement. We have to do this. This is not, the couple of the other exercises we're going to talk about when we get to small explosive bursts or even strength training, I would say those are optional. You don't have to do these, but I want us all to prioritize movement. How much more movement should we be doing? The answer to that is probably more than you're doing right now. I don't think we can get enough of it. So let's talk about simple movements for a second. Maybe you've heard sitting is this new smoking. And so, by the way, let me show you. I'm not sitting today. I am standing here at my stand-up desk, And so before you go clapping your hands, or I'm clapping my own hands about how awesome I am at a standing desk, I would say that standing or sitting is not the new smoking. It's pretty much being still and not moving is the new smoking. So if I was sitting down all day, that's just the same thing as standing up all day. Now, so if I'm just standing here in the same position and not moving, it's no worse than just sitting all day. So I don't want you to get the concept of just sitting is bad, but not moving and not changing your position during the day is terrible for the human body. And so again, it's a non-negotiable, and we really need to fight that. I'll give you a couple ways to fight that, but let's talk about that now. Maybe instead of a food journal, or in addition to a food journal, you need to do like a movement journal, like a movement inventory. So I don't know any tool for this other than maybe a piece of paper and a pencil and a pen, but maybe write down how often you're stationary during the day, or what kind of movement you get during the day. So you think about kind of the typical American. You've just got up from hopefully a good restful 8 hours of sleep, not moving, lying down. You shouldn't be moving while you're sleeping. But okay, so you've spent 7-8 hours lying down, not moving a whole lot, maybe just tossing from one side to the other. But you get up and go in your car. Maybe less of us are commuting these days. That's one maybe good benefit of all this craziness that we're in. But you commute. So maybe it's 10 minutes, 15 minutes, maybe it's an hour, sitting down in traffic. You get to your office and you sit down. You sit in your cubicle for maybe the next 6 hours until lunchtime. So then you maybe get up, jump in the car again, more sitting, drive to a restaurant, and sit down for another hour or so. Get in your car, sit down, drive back to the office, sit down in your cubicle, and sit until it's time to go home. So you get in the car again, sit some more, drive home, and then maybe you're just like, oh, so tired after a long day, so you're just kind of sitting on the couch. And then it's time for dinner, so you make some dinner and you sit down at the kitchen table, and then you wind down from the exhausting day of sitting with more sitting. Sitting down and watching, your Disney Plus or Netflix or Paramount or whatever your streaming service is. Just a lot more sitting, and then it's time for bed, and then we do it all over again. So I think you get what I'm getting at. It's like we just are too much of a sitting, stagnant, stationary culture, and that's got to change. That's got to change for us. It is metabolically unhealthy for us to remain so stagnant and not moving and being inside like all the time. I talked about, maybe commuting is a good thing that the craziness of this world in the last year has helped us with, but being more indoors, that's not a good thing. We'll talk about that way later. But so yeah, how can we make general improvements in our movement during the day? And so maybe if you're at a meeting and you still are commuting or something like that, just go, hey, rather than just like sitting down at a table and not moving in your meeting, why don't you just like stand up, and just move your position and just stand up. I don't care if everyone thinks you're, a weirdo or a psycho, but hey, you can be a good example. Maybe you can even just do some, air squats, 10 air squats, and then like sit down again. So continue just to change your position that way. Maybe you're like me and you've been standing at a standing desk for a while and you're thinking, oh, I'm so healthy, I got a standing desk. Well, that's not good at all. So How do I do this? I've got a timer on my phone. So when I know that I'm going to be standing at my desk banging out things on my keyboard for a while, I will this timer goes off. It's called a focus keeper, and it's kind of for the concept of brain sprinting. So it kind of gives your brain a break, which is really good. But I use it for not only a break in my brain, so it goes off every 25 minutes. So I typing away, all of a sudden I hear this like ding, and it's going to give me a 5-minute break. So whatever I'm doing, I don't care if I'm mid-sentence, I got to like stop what I'm doing and change my position. So I'm changing my position physically, and I'm also changing my position like mentally. So I'm taking my eyes off the screen. Another reason we probably don't need to be looking at blue screens all day long. We'll talk about that in a couple days when we talk about sleep. And I'll just stare out the window. Maybe I'll sit down for my 5-minute break and just kind of stare out the window and kind of let the brain fog go away. A lot of times I'll do what's called a micro workout, which this is another day, but I'll do a little quick workout. Maybe it's a couple pull-ups, a couple of push-ups, swing the kettlebell a couple times, do a couple of squats, things like that. And that just kind of gives me a different break in a different position, and then I'm back to the standing desk for a minute. Or, the standing desk, like I invested in this. This was like about $300. It wasn't too expensive, but this thing lowers and raises, so I can kind of even change just my position a little bit and how I'm standing, and it makes all the difference in the world. And so kind of taking a movement inventory and making some adjustments can really, really help. Again, how much more do you need to be moving? Probably more than you're currently moving. I don't think our bodies are ever like, yeah, you just moved too much today. Some people benefit from step counters and wearable technology. I'm not a big fan of that unless it really helps you. But I don't need any Fitbits or Apple Watches or Oura Rings or anything like that to tell me that I just need to be moving more or tracking how many steps I get or something like that. I just try to think, hey, how can I get more movement in today? How can I get more movement in tomorrow? And my body is probably, I don't think it's ever said, Chris, that was just too much movement today, too many steps. It's usually telling me too little steps. And you know where I feel the too little steps, or when I feel like I haven't been changing my position enough, I get it like backaches. Not bad like I used to have, because I was probably eating so many inflammatory foods and doing stupid stuff to my back. I mean, I would get just back problems all the time, easily tweaking my back kind of thing. But it shows up where if I've been sitting like watching Netflix for a couple hours and I haven't moved, I can just kind of feel I'm like, it just kind of tightens up. It doesn't maybe really hurt. I don't feel like I've touched or messed anything up, but man, it's like, it just feels tight. Everything feels tight. By the way, have you ever, maybe you've been sick, and in bed for 3 days straight. Or maybe you're like, you know what, I'm so tired lately from my job and I've got 3 days off, like a holiday weekend, so I am going to sit and lay in bed for 3 days straight. I'm going to do nothing. And you stay in your pajamas for 3 days straight. Do you ever wake up on the 4th day and get sore? You're like, oh my gosh, was I like lifting weights? Like, did I pull something? Like, you didn't injure it like by, going to the gym or doing some athletic activity. You're probably like sore and like, because you just haven't like moved or changed your position at all. So I think it's kind of funny how we can get injured just by laying there for 3 days straight. So again, vitally important that you change your position and that you find a way to remind yourself, because in our modern world that we live in with all of our technology, it's so easy. It's easy for me to just stand here and especially get lost in like a project or typing something, and I can spend just 3 hours and not even really move if I don't have some kind of bing alarm that's telling me, hey Chris, get your butt off of this position and change that. All right, so that's enough about just changing your position. So, and again, you don't really think of this as like exercise, do you? Maybe, and I want us to reframe our thinking about exercise, because exercise doesn't always have to be in a pool of sweat and getting your heart rate up to a maximum. It doesn't always have to be where you're just huffing and puffing kind of thing. I want us to begin to think of exercise as just these low level kinds of movements. You're going to be even more underwhelmed when we get to the next section on exercise, the whole sort of low level aerobic activity. That's coming up pretty soon too. But for the meantime, I would just say, hey, get moving more. Let us know in the Facebook group what you're doing to move more, or Tell us what are some of the challenges and obstacles to you moving more, and so maybe we can be of help to you on that. So I think that's it. So yeah, kind of a short one today. I kept it under 30 minutes. Let's see if there's any comments. Josh, setting up your environment to encourage movement is huge. That's the big one. You know, it's not a question of willpower. It kind of goes back to the day one, right? Of setting up our environment to win. So maybe it's investing in a standing desk. Maybe it's investing in an alarm, a paid one, or a free app. But just setting up your environment and saying, hey, okay, if I don't do anything, I'm probably not setting up myself to win. So it's a really good idea, knowing that I need more movement in. Again, if an Aura ring or a Fitbit or an Apple Watch helps you, then invest in that. Absolutely. If it does anything to help you to be reminded until it becomes habit, because if you do this enough, it's just going to become habit and automatic and rote, and you won't have to continue to remind yourself to move and change the positions, because you'll feel it. You'll begin to feel it in your muscles and your bones, and you'll begin to make, hey, you know what? I need to move. I need to change my position. I've been sitting here or standing here or not moving for too long, and it's a good idea that I do this. You know, another way to do it is and again, maybe DVRs aren't the best for this thing. And sometimes if I know I'm going to be sitting around watching like a football game, for instance, and I don't want to sit there and watch the commercials, so I can say, you know, hey, I'll watch the game, and as soon as the commercial hits, I'm going to get up from the couch and I'm going to do 10 air squats. That's way better than sitting there and watching a bad commercial, you know, or a promo of Pepsi's The Weekend Halftime Show, which I think I saw 600 of those commercials over the last couple months. So yeah, just use, you know, maybe commercials as an excuse. Whatever your environment is, however you can get yourself moving more is a good thing. Josh says, make little rules for yourself. LOL. That's very true. You know, 10 squats every time you go to the bathroom. I love that idea. When we talk about the concept of micro workouts, I've got a pull-up bar under my bathroom door, and so I've gotten to the point of, like, every time I walk under that bathroom door, I'll do one pull-up or maybe 5 pull-ups or something like that. And again, I'm not going to turn into muscle man when it comes to that, but it's just like a little, hey, if I'm going to walk under this door, that's a reminder to just get a little bit of exercise in, because it does have a cumulative effect. It really can add up to big gains. Again, I'm not going to turn into muscle man doing this, but I know that I'm going to be moving more when I do this. That's a great point, Josh. Okay, so I think that's it. Let me head on over to the other side, see if there's anything over there. I think that's it today. So again, you guys have an awesome day. I look forward to talking with you tomorrow. I think tomorrow is all about beverages. I'll have to double check that, but that's one of my favorite ones, talking about beverages. And I'm going to show you my very favorite beverage. This is it right here. I'm going to show you how to make this amazing beverage that has changed my life. But we'll talk all about beverages, coffee, soda, milk, any kind of other beverage questions you have. So keep them coming. Hit me up with any beverage questions you might have, and we will address those. So have a great day. I said I was going to keep it to 30 minutes. I'm now at 30 minutes and 50 seconds. So signing off.